Hey everyone, Paul here, going a little off script for this quick video because something just dropped on my radar very recently thanks to a friend, Erin Dale, who made me aware of this new line art modifier for grease pencil that's been put into the main alpha release of Blender 2.93. And I thought today I might have a bit of a play around with it, and while I'm playing around, I'll screen capture it just to sort of show it off a little bit and get you all excited about something that's coming up that's going to be a bit of a game changer. So thanks, Erin. You guys should definitely check out Erin's stuff. Erin is a math whiz and has helped me immensely in the last few months with my knowledge of using math for shaders in Blender. So please do go check out their stuff. Okay, so I think we should just jump into Blender to explain it better and see how the line art modifier works, how it performs, how you set it up, and what its capabilities are. So why don't we jump into Blender and let's get started. So here it is, Blender 2.93 Alpha, as released a couple of days ago. I think it was the 17th or something like that of March 2021. And I'm just going to look at this default cube here. Let's take a look through the camera. We've got our default scene collection. I'm just going to move the camera and light out of that collection, and we'll leave it named collection, and we'll leave this named cube. And what I might do is, because this feature works not only for stills, but it is optimized for animation, I'm going to limit my animation to about 100 frames. So it's nice and short. And what are we going to do here? We are going to take this cube, give it a rotation. Let's see here. Yep. Then go to the end of that and go 360 and give that a keyframe. If we go into animation and switch this over to the graph editor, hit home to see this, what I also might do is take this keyframe and interpolate it as linear. So now we've got this cube that is just spinning 360 degrees and looping. So line art modifier. It is a grease pencil function. So I'm going to go to the parent collection outside of this collection before I add a grease pencil object. So I'm just going to go Shift A and add a blank grease pencil object. Now, playing around with this, I know that you need at least one layer, so I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this outlines. And it's good to have a material. Oh, wow, no materials have been generated. So I'm going to go a new material. Call this solid lines. And it is a solid line type of material. Awesome. And with the grease pencil selected, let's just go into draw mode. So Control Tab, draw. And we need to view our tool settings. I'm going to get an ink pen. Let's just go over to our modifier properties. And there under generate, there's line art. Now, as soon as you apply it, nothing happens. That's okay, because you've got to give it a source. And the source type can be three things. It can be a collection, it can be an object, it can be a scene. Now I'm going to start with an object, and we'll eyedropper this cube. These are the edge types. Now, you would have seen this in freestyle, things like contour, material. This is where it's going to break up the edges. We need to select a target layer. That's why we created that outlines layer. And so if we click on that, edit pencil, we will see our outlines layer. And I found the quickest way to work is to also give it a target material. And as soon as we do that, bang, there it is, okay? And if we mouse around, okay, let's just take that off. You can see that from behind, there are no lines on the back side there, but they're all on the front side. That's because you do need to be in some sort of a camera viewport to generate these, because it's going to use that camera information to say, okay, this is where we have to put the lines in relation to this scene. So that's the cube. And like I said, you can use materials, you can use edge marks, which we have neither of. You can use an intersection, which we'll see in a second. You can use creases and contour. Now you see, if I click on creases, that means these front-facing edges set to this angle. So anything below a certain angle, so if you bring that angle right down, nothing will happen. But as soon as we hit 90 degrees, because those are 90-degree angles, they're going to show up. And so by default, it's set to about 140 because obviously 180 is a flat plane. And so if you have all sorts of, usually on a manifold mesh, even like a Susan Monkey head, everything is just south of 140-ish. But you can sort of play around with that just in case there are some angles that you need creased. And of course, the contour is the silhouette of the object. All right, so now if we play that animation, you can see that for every frame, the grease pencil is updating. If we change our dope sheet to grease pencil, take a look at the summary. Nothing is showing up yet because what you have to do, it hasn't generated anything yet. This is still in some sort of a preview. Right? Now you do have all these other options such as style. And so while you're still previewing this, especially on simple objects, you can increase the thickness or decrease the thickness. I'm just going to leave it there. You can also change the opacity, things like that. I won't go into occlusion or chaining, although they do become important. What I do want to draw your attention to is baking, because the last process that you do is bake the line art, and that will generate the grease pencil object. So we can go with bake line art. Don't have to worry about all, because basically the all is if you have multiple grease pencil objects, because, you know, scenes can get fairly complicated and you want different grease pencil objects to outline different objects or areas of your scene or collections, right? You can sort of see and imagine how complex it can get. That's when you can do a bake line art all. But for our purposes, bake line art is enough. And then under summary, if we select the grease pencil, there it is. I'm just going to hit home here. You can see how it's generated a keyframe for every frame. Now, if I was to make that collection invisible, which makes the cube invisible, you can now see that this grease pencil object exists. It is also editable. And so if we were looking at all the points, you can also see that in 3D space, it exists. Okay, and you can see sort of where it stops, because if we're looking at, let's see, where's our camera? Here's the camera, right? Here's the grease pencil object with all the points. You can see that everything pointing towards the camera is what renders. That's how it works, but it is creating those lines. Let's just go back into object mode in 3D space. Let's do something even cooler, right? Let's duplicate this. Oh, you know, first off, why don't we clear all the baked lines? We'll just go back to frame one. I'm going to duplicate this cube. Okay, it's a grease pencil, clear all the baked lines. And let's call this cube small. Why do I want to duplicate this cube? Everything will become clear in a second. I'm going to move it into this position and maybe scale it down a bit. And so now we've got two cubes. It's still generating. So, you know what? We're just going to take that off for a second. Right? We've got two cubes. Yep. Now remember, our source object is still just the first cube. We can also pick cube small. All right, but let's just leave it at cube, and let's get our target material in there so that we can generate something. Why isn't it generating? Probably because it doesn't have a keyframe anymore. And so I'm going to go into draw mode and put a blank keyframe. Okay, so it needs a keyframe in order to generate even a preview. Let's go back into object mode. Right, so you can see how it's using the source object to generate this grease pencil. What if we change that source type to collection and we change that to the collection? Now we've got both cubes All right, and because we've got this intersection, we can get that intersecting line in there. And of course, to preview it, right, all of those keyframes are going to have a grease pencil object drawn. Okay, how awesome is that? Now, I bet some of you are asking, what if we had a different material? So let's make a new material, and let's call this line fill, and give this some fill information. All right, let's just go with, should we pick a color? Yeah, why not? Just to be fancy. And let's go to this, and instead of solid lines this time, I'm going to use the line fill material. Now we're getting a little Z fighting here, all right? So let's make our collection invisible. Now, I think we need to generate it first, or bake it. So maybe we'll do that. Let's bake the line art. Select that grease pencil. Okay, there it is. And now we'll make our cubes invisible. There it is. But can you see how it's not exactly what we want? Okay, some of those intersecting lines are fighting and they're not working correctly. So let's just try something else. Continue that cleaning, clear all baked art. Select that grease pencil object, draw mode. I know that a developer is going to see this and just go, Paul, you're going about it all wrong. And that's the conversation I want to start. So if I'm going the wrong way about this, please leave a comment in the section. Look, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. I know this thing will improve. I'm just jumping in this for the first time and trying this out. Okay, so maybe if we add materials, what else can we do? Shading, all lines, intersect. Maybe that could do something. Okay, let's bake that line art and let's have a look. All right, you can see how there's going to be some problems. And so for line art, it works fabulous. And you see, what I did was, let's see if I can open up this scene here. Yeah, let's not save this. I took this scene here and generated some line art for the scene. Let's take a look through the camera here. And if we were to disable that scene and take a look at this grease pencil here. Now, did I do some fancy stuff? Yes, I did. I sort of made the opacity all lighter. Okay, so I generated this line art from this scene, which I shaded with my Comic Toon shaders. And I did this on a single frame. So I had to bring my animations down to one frame and then do a bake. And it took a little while because there were a lot of objects, but this is the result. We're looking at the material preview here, and here it is in rendered view, which isn't too different. So the materials here have got my comics shaders. Okay, so there's the base comic shader with the halftone texture and some textures that I made, some emission shaders and so on and so forth. And then this grease pencil object, let's just turn off the extras so it can just sort of A and B it. That's without it, that's with it, and I can edit that grease pencil object using all of the things like adjustments for, say, stroke thickness. So if I wanted a really thick line, I could bump up the stroke thickness on that outline layer. Let's just leave it at 4. Or maybe even tint it a color. Let's tint this sort of a bluish tint and bring up that factor so you can sort of see how that works, right? The other thing I can obviously do, besides that stuff, is let's turn this off and just go into solid mode, tab into edit mode for the grease pencil object. Oh, of course, we need our extras back on. Right. And there are all the points. So because this has etched out our scene, what if I wanted to say let's just take these points that are linked and just scale those. Oh, let's do them through a medium point. Here we go. And scale those so they're fatter, those individual ones. Or maybe I wanted to taper them off a little bit from here, right? Or maybe I wanted to do, an extrude, that sort of thing, right? To do some kind of, if we link that and maybe subdivide it a couple of times, right? Deselect that, deselect that, deselect that, and extrude all those lines in the same direction and scale them down so they look like a bit of a shading effect, right? Now we've got those lines added in, okay? They're editable in situ, and so that when you see that mesh underneath that's been toon shaded, the line work over the top, move them out a little bit off the surface. Maybe I should have done that. Let's bring those out a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Okay, so there's a pipe there. But, oh, look, that doesn't look too bad. But point being, you can edit those lines. You can edit the grease pencil after you've done everything. And that's really, really cool. And, of course, I've got some 2D grease pencil assets already in there that are oriented towards the camera view. And because they occlude everything else, the render comes out really, really beautiful. So I just do a quick render in a single pass. Okay, I tell a lie. That's got a bit of a colorization effect on that, but you get the idea. You can see the line work. You can see all the grease pencil stuff. This is an Eevee render, and so, yeah, it's working really, really well. So that's a line art modifier. How cool is that? I hope you're as excited as I am about it. Now, I don't think this is exactly a replacement for things like freestyle, and it has more in common with the branch that a lot of NPR enthusiasts are familiar with called LAN PR. But this is for grease pencil, and it does generate a grease pencil object, as you saw in this demo. So if you want to play with it, it's in the alpha version right now. Go to blender.org, go to the download page, scroll down to the bottom, click on Go Experimental, download the alpha version, and have at it.